Hi, 803. Happy Monday and welcome to your last week of class in 2017. This is a review on the quiz that you took on Friday. I have posted the answers as well as the answer sheet, but I'm going to have to sketch everything else in. So here we go. Question number 1 says sketch a graph of each situation and label each section. So in the first sense, this is the graph of a child growing. On my x-axis, I have time. On my y-axis, I have height. So remember that no one starts at 0, and so your height would start at some small amount. You grow slowly, then you might grow very quickly, then you level off, you might grow very quickly again, and then you'll level off over time. So each one of you should have labeled these 3 sections, but I got the point if you didn't. The second question is the distance a car travels at a steady speed of time. So once again, I have time on the x-axis. I have distance traveled on the y-axis. So if I have gone, and you can make a little data chart for yourself, my t is my time, my distance is my y. If I have gone zero time, I've gone 0 miles. If I have gone for 1 hour and I've gone 60 miles, then I have gone 60 miles an hour. I start at origin and I go straight up through the center, traveling at a constant rate. I'm going to put red in some of the answers that I saw that were incorrect. So one of the incorrect answers looked like this. This basically would be saying that over a certain period of time, I only went one distance. If that were 60 miles, then I only went 60 miles over time, and it's not true. We went from, this is the distance that we traveled from 0 up to a certain amount of time. So anything that I put in red is incorrect. Anything in black is correct. Question number 3 is bacteria which doubled every hour. This is the same problem as our zombie problem, our same problem as our paper cuts problem. So if something is doubling every hour, so if I have my x and my y, where y is my number of bacteria, in my first hour, 1 times 2 is 2. In my second hour, 2 times 2 is 4. In my third hour, 3 times 2 is 6. My graph is going to look something like this. It's an exponential equation, and if it's doubling, my y is equal to 2, and in this case, it's raised to the x power. That's an exponential equation. Okay, take a minute to jot those down, and then we're heading on to the evaluations. Okay, evaluation. We are evaluating everything for x is equal to -1/2. So for any one of my equations, I'm substituting in -1/2 and solving. So for 5, I have f of x is equal to 4 times -1/2. 4 times -1/2 is -4 over 2, or -2 when simplified. Problem number 6. G of x. Doesn't matter if it's f of x, g of x, y of x, k of x, z of x. Any x, it's the same type of function. This time it's -x plus 1/2. So I substitute in here. I'm going to substitute in, I'll put that in red. I'm going to substitute in -1/2 and -1/2 plus 1/2. But remember, it's a -1/2. A negative cancels out a negative becomes a positive. So it's 1/2 plus 1/2, which is simply equal to 1. And that was the correct answer for number 6. Number 7 is the absolute value, or just is equal to y. Right now I'm no longer in a function, just y equals the absolute value of x minus 3/2. So the absolute value of x is now the absolute value of -1/2. Absolute value of -1/2 is then 1/2 minus 3/2. So since I have 1 minus 3, I'm going to end up with negative 2 over 2, or my answer is negative 1. I think I can fit 5, I'm sorry, that's 5, 7, and 9. I'm going straight down. So you might correct 5, 7, and 9. So I'm going to clear 5, 7, and 9 and go on to 6, 8, and 10. So 6 is, and remember all of this is still let x equal to negative 1/2. For 6, f of x is equal to negative 1/2. I substitute in minus 2. And so remember, when I'm adding a negative, that's the same thing as adding these two together. So it's negative 2 minus 1/2 is going to give me negative 2 and 1/2. You could have answered 2.5. It's all the same. Question number 8. H of x is equal to negative 3 times negative 1/2, which is I'm substituting in for x, plus 1. So I'm going to take this down here, and I have a negative times a negative, so I get a positive 3/2 plus 1. And I know that 3/2 is the same thing as 1 and 1/2, or 1.5 plus 1. Therefore, I will get 1.5 plus 1 is 2 and 1/2, or 2.5, either one. Last question is number 10, and it is y is equal to 1/2, and again that's negative 1/2 squared plus 1/4. So if I square negative 1/2, I get 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4, negative times a negative is a positive, so I have 1/4 plus 1/4 equals 2/4. My denominator is the same. 2/4 is equal to 1/2. You could have answered 1/2 or 0.5. Excellent work for most of you. Just please make the corrections in your lab book, and you will see this on your exam next week. Thanks very much, and I will see you all Tuesday.